Welcome to Nurse Fern's latest health tech nurse interview. Today, I feel extra special because we're partnering with Ambience Healthcare, and we get to chat with two nurses from their team about their path to health tech, what they're currently working on. Spoiler, they currently just launched a nursing product, and the advice they have for nurses who are interested in moving into the health tech space. Ambience Healthcare is the leading AI care delivery platform, empowering clinicians across the full care journey while improving revenue integrity. Trusted by leading health systems and academic medical centers across North America, Ambient supports more than 200 medical and surgical subspecialties with AI that integrates directly into major EHRs. The nurses who are hanging out with us today are Amber Walker, Clinical Sales Engineer, and Samantha Fortuner, Clinical AI Analyst. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you in here chatting with us today.
Yeah, same. So excited to be here.
As we launch into this interview, I want to ask a couple questions to get to know you before we start to talk about the product that you're working on. Sound good?
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yes.
What type of nursing did you do before working for Ambience?
I actually was a labor and delivery nurse. And I was in peds, so inpatient, pediatric intermediate care. Have not touched an adult since nursing school, and I'm very happy about that.
This is actually so cool because so often we get questions from nurses who work in specialties like peds and maternal health, and they're like, I don't feel like there's anything out there for me. This is going to be a good convo. How did you make the switch from clinical into the health tech space? And Amber, I'll let you take this first.
So for me, it really started off just by curiosity. So I had just finished doing travel nursing throughout COVID. So that was a pretty rough stint for me. But I really wanted to find other ways that I felt like I could make a difference in healthcare without providing, direct patient care. And so I knew that I enjoyed working with technology. I was actually a super user pretty early on for Epic integration at the beginning of my career. And so I just started really writing down a list of technology that I used every day at the bedside, different companies or manufacturers that I recalled using. And I let that kind of start my search journey for jobs. And in doing that on LinkedIn, of course, I found a slew of other health tech companies. And then from there, I really started to look at, okay, do they even hire nurses? Are there nurses that work for these companies? And I found out that there were. So I let that also start my formal, I guess, if you will, discovery into these different roles that they have. And so from there, I kind of went on an application spree. And it wasn't something that happened overnight, of course. I think it took about maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 months to start landing interviews. And I landed my first health tech job back in 2023, and I haven't looked back since.
I love how you dove right into LinkedIn. It's kind of a scary place, but full of good things. And Sam, how did you make the switch into health tech?
Fairly similar to Amber. So years before joining Ambience, I actually had one prior role in health tech. And so the transition was very intentional. Started by kind of mapping out every possible role I could imagine myself pivoting into, and then looking for people who were doing that job and just having as many conversations as I possibly could, learning about what skills I needed to be able to pivot. What would it look like to serve patients in a different context? Because I think when you're a nurse, you are so up close with just meaning making. And so for me, if I was doing that in a different context, I had to know that the company that I was joining, the job that I was going to be in, was going to be a mission-driven one. And so I think that was the anchor. And then just having a lot of conversations similar to Amber, dozens and dozens of applications, casting my net really wide until someone took a chance on me. It did not happen overnight. A lot of effort.
You mentioned mapping out skills that would really help. Was there anything surprising from bedside work that really helped when you pivoted?
Amber, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I can take that one. I would say really that ability to be flexible and adaptable and critically think. As we all know, being a nurse, you can start off your shift thinking that everything is fine, and then something can quickly change and you have to adapt to, what your patient or what that day is really providing you. And it's really the same in technology. Technology is always changing, especially healthcare technology, even in, this AI world that we're in now. So really being able to critically think and have that flexibility to adjust and, kind of roll with the times.
What's so funny, Emma, is that I think I had this perception when I was looking at jobs that I didn't have enough skills. I didn't understand yet that so much of what we do is transferable. And when you're looking at job applications, I think this is becoming outdated, but they used to be called like soft skills.
Yeah.
And I always had a problem with that. Like, there's nothing soft about these skills.
Yeah.
These are critical pillars to being successful in business and in health tech. And so I think the first one, which so many nurses can relate to, is just relationship building. Do you like people? If you like people, you're already going to have a leg up. Can you build warm and trusting relationships with your teammates, with external stakeholders? That's huge. Conscientiousness. Every nurse I know is incredibly conscientious, cares deeply about doing excellent work. Grit. I have to do this really hard, annoying thing, but it's in service of a bigger goal. I think the ability to prioritize, I think, as Amber already said, what is the most important thing that I have to do right now? And where can I let chaos reign for a little while? I think all of these things took me time to learn. Oh, I have these skills already. Certainly they're sharpened in a new environment, in a new context, but I think nurses have so many incredibly diverse skills that apply to many different environments outside of the bedside.
Okay, I want to ask you this next question because AI is everywhere. And do you remember the first time that you encountered AI in nursing and what your first impression was?
I know for me, once ChatGPT came out and everyone was kind of raving about it, I feel like most nurses, there were some skepticism, because it's not something that, of course, we were using, every single day at the bedside. And I feel like it was that concern of, well, what are they going to train this AI to do? Could AI come in and potentially take my job? So I know that was, a valid fear. And I was skeptical, of course, at first. But I feel like once I learned more about AI and started working with it, especially, of course, being at Ambience, I feel that I was really able to see all that it could do and the helpful tool that it can be versus a replacement. And also hearing some of the success stories, from the providers that have utilized our ambient technology and just hearing about the difference that it's made in their daily lives and the impact that it's making. I feel like it quickly changed my trajectory of, how I view AI.
It was one of the biggest skeptics of all. It's actually so ironic that I'm in this role now and my husband still laughs at me because 2022, I think it was, when GPT, 3.5 came out. I was working at the bedside in San Francisco. I was like very, close to burnout. My husband, it was all he could talk about was GPT 3.5. This is so amazing. And I was very skeptical. And I, at that time, could not grasp how significantly this could change healthcare. And it took me a little bit of time. It took me really almost 2 years to really come around. And similar to Amber, I think the turning point was someone like me, right? A clinician who was talking about their experience with this product and how it allowed them to really do more of what they came into healthcare to do. Hearing a clinician with tears in their eyes say, I get to go to my kids' soccer games now. I'm not missing out on my home life as much. I'm able to be more fully present with my patients. My patients feel more deeply cared for. Like, that was the light bulb moment for me where I was like, oh, wow, AI in benevolent hands in this context could be absolutely transformational. And so that was when I was bought in.
I like the comment about AI in benevolent hands. I think that is very important. And one of the reasons that nurses need to be involved in it. So now I have a little bit of background on the two of you. Now we're going to launch and talk a little bit about Ambience and what you're working on. You ready?
Let's do it.
Can you tell me what you're currently working on?
Yeah, I can take this one. So first, I'm just taking a step back. I think the core really insight behind why is Ambience even focusing on building a nursing platform? The core insight is really, documentation is painful. We're hearing a lot in the market about documentation solutions, but this is only one part of what really makes nursing hard. And so there's a much bigger challenge as nurses, so much cognitive work just to care for one patient, right? But in the inpatient setting, you're often caring for multiple very complex patients. What is required to do that safely? What is required to do that confidently? And so that was the question that Ambience was really focused on as we started building out this platform. So what is our current offering today? We have 3 AI-powered tools, all that live within the EHR, to support nurses across the entire shift. So for some nurses, that's 8 hours. For some nurses, that's 12 hours. There are a lot of complex needs that are contained within that time with patients. And so 2 of our offerings are really about extracting and synthesizing context from the EHR to deliver something actionable to the nurse. And then our third is taking all of the hard work that nurses are doing at the bedside and actually putting that back into the chart. So first, we have Nursing Summary, which helps nurses build a mental model of who their patient is from a clinical and psychosocial perspective before they ever meet them or have to assume care. The second is Chart Chat, which is really for, all of the unpredictable moments within your day, gives nurses a dynamic way to kind of explore and interrogate the chart based on the question like, what if you could just ask the chart what's going on with your patient? And then finally, Ambient Flowsheet documentation, like I said, is going to capture care that's happening at the bedside, translate that naturally into structured documentation for the nurse.
You have a lot going on. Now, I didn't prepare you for this. The only thing I prepared you for was that I probably would throw something else in here.
That's great. We love it.
Without naming names, what sets you apart from your biggest competitors?
I think what sets us apart, there's a lot of focus right now on documentation. And I totally agree as a nurse that documentation is a burden, but I really don't think that that's it. And after hundreds of hours, at least, between our product lead, all of the clinicians on our team, even engineers shadowing nurses, we saw that there was more here than just documentation pain. So I think what sets us apart is that when you look at this whole suite of products, they're working together synergistically to address very specific points of friction throughout an entire shift. It's not just one point, it's not just the end of the day charting or, the head to toe assessment. It's, oh my gosh, I just got an admission and I already have, 4 patients. How do I get a quick download on what's going on with them and what I need to prioritize in seconds before I have to go actually start taking care of them? It's, hey, this family just asked a really hard question. How do I use the thousands of pages of source material contained within this patient's chart to answer this for them at a reading level that, makes sense to them. So I think what sets us apart is first, just deep curiosity about the problem. We took a kind of contrarian approach to what products we decided to build. And that came from spending a lot of time with nurses from day 0. And then also, I'm thinking about my amazing colleagues right now. Shout out to Sparsh, Jason, Druvin, Justin, people that didn't even need necessarily to be boots on the ground shadowing. What does shift handoff look like? What does it mean to get an admission? What does this workflow look like? They went to hospitals to actually speak with nurses and watch them throughout a shift and understand their pain. I don't know of any other company that's doing that. Like your engineers are actually on the ground meeting nurses so that all of their senses are engaged in what this problem really feels like. I think that that's what sets us apart. But Amber, I'm also curious to hear your answer.
I know for me, so Ambience is not the first health tech company that I worked at, but once I came to Ambience and I heard about the legwork that our team actually did when it came to creating this product, I was absolutely moved. And just the dedication, especially like Sam said, from these individuals that don't have that healthcare background, but they really wanted to make sure they had a deep understanding. I feel like it just goes to show the dedication of our team in really creating a quality product that is going to be useful for the intended audience of nurses. So I think it's incredible.
I just thought of something else, and sometimes I forget to share this, but for me, this is not just about time savings. I think we hear a lot about that. Take time away from the chart, give it back to the patient. Yes, absolutely. That's important. And for me, it's also about equity of clinical support. I think Amber and I have both had the incredible opportunity to work at amazing institutions across the United States where we have great support. I know what it's like to have a resource nurse on shift. I know what it's like to have an incredibly supportive charge nurse, preceptors that wanted to see me succeed and grow. That's amazing. But I think that these tools also are coming from a place of not every nurse has access to an exceptional preceptor charge nurse, clinical mentor, especially in really under-resourced settings. And, even the best ones can't always be at your side. So I don't love the framing of like clinical teammate that is AI. AI can never be your teammate, right? But can it be a helpful thought partner to you when you need one most? And I think that that's also what this is about, not just time saving, but equity of clinical support.
I'll add this in there too, just after hearing you talk, Sam. Just thinking about our desire to also continue to show up for our customers even after they have the product. So our dedicated support team that is there, at the nurse's fingertips if she does come up, where she has a question about something about our product or about chart chat, or she wants to give, feedback. We are readily available and have a team that's here in the US that can respond and assist that nurse. It's not something where she has to, jot something down and maybe try to get a hold of us later. We're right there inside of the chart so she can actually get the support that she needs.
Can you walk us through what it's like for a nurse to use the Ambience nursing suite during a shift?
I want to say I wish that I had this when I was still at the bedside. The products are really designed to map like the real rhythm of a shift. So if I'm a nurse coming in, before I walk into the room, as Sam stated, I want to be able to understand my patient. And so the nursing summary is really going to allow me to get that quick orientation of, who's my patient, why they're here, and what's the current plan for this patient. So that'll also give me the opportunity to prioritize amongst the other patients that I may be taking care of. And then throughout the shift, of course, I may need, answers to questions that may arise. Chart chat is going to let the nurse ask those questions. It's going to go ahead and synthesize and go through and looking through that chart. We like to call it has AI eyes. So it's going to look through the chart and find information that's going to help us with that questionnaire. That way I don't have to actually leave and, click around, look through different notes and things like that. So, let's just say that I may need to ask, what potential medication interactions should I be aware of for my patient? Show me highlights from this patient's past medical history and past social history that are most relevant to this admission. Also allowing me to really personalize the care that I'm providing for this specific patient. And then, of course, in a perfect world, I need documentation that's not going to pull me away from patient care. And so the Ambient Flowsheet documentation is going to capture the narrated patient assessment into more of that structured flow sheets with each discrete value, linked back to the exact spoken phrase and, requiring, of course, nurse confirmation before submission. We like to use the term, of course, trust but verify, so that nurse is still really going to be, in control of what is actually submitted over. Even when it comes to the information that we're pulling from other areas inside of the chart, that source documentation is still going to always be linked to whatever we're putting in front of that nurse. So if there's something that we're summarizing from a physician's H&P, we'll have that link there to where they can actually go back and read that source documentation of where we're getting that information from.
I got a sneak peek at the nursing suite on the product, and I've got to say one of my favorite things that I felt was super unique was, I think it was the psychosocial support section.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Good.
One of my favorite sections too, because I feel like some of those things can easily be missed. And it really allows the nurses to really care for their patient holistically. Of course, they're presenting with this clinical picture and, we're addressing that. We're giving meds, we're doing vitals and staying on top of things clinically for that patient. But, there are important things that I also need to know to help me build that rapport and connect with my patient. Like who's involved? Okay, they have a very supportive spouse. Maybe I know that I need to go into a little bit more detail of making sure that their spouse also understands the plan of care for this patient and that I'm answering their questions also. Or any, preferences that they have in terms of applesauce over Jell-O or pudding over Jell-O. Things like that are important too. So that's one of my favorite sections.
It really felt like one of those things, like when you do a drive-by at the door with another clinician and they're like, hey, just so you know. That's what that section felt like.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow. That makes me so happy that you feel that way, because that was exactly the intent. Like I personally was thinking about, what does your report sheet look like at the end of day 3 or day 4? It's a mess, right? I even had like color-coded sections with like updates in purple, original in black, like... it takes days to learn these details about patients. It's hard-won information. And if you have a little bit of time, I don't know, it's rare that you'll be digging through like chaplain notes or social work notes. You're really trying to keep that clinical picture assembled and updated in real time. And I feel like sometimes the psychosocial pieces are just hard-earned at the bedside. And so being able to have some of that aggregated for you before you meet the patient is so, so helpful.
I feel like you were very involved in the development of this. Is that true?
It is true. This is the one thing I said. We absolutely have to have this because nurses are the greatest advocates. It's not just what's going on with this person clinically, it's who are they outside of these hospital walls? What do they care about? Who cares about them? What are their goals? How can I make them feel less afraid and more seen and cared for? So that was a huge priority, and I'm really, really grateful that Ambience rallied around that.
There's a lot of discussion about involving nurses in the end product, and we've talked about it a little bit about having the engineers on the ground and talking with nurses, really finding out and getting into the things of what is useful. Can you share anything else about how you take feedback from nurses and how you continue to integrate those who are on the ground into the product?
This was shaped in ongoing partnership with the Ambience Nursing Council, which consists of frontline nurses, CNOs, nursing informatics leaders. And I just want to shout out Cleveland Clinic's nursing informatics team specifically. They've been absolutely instrumental in building what we have today. It has to start with nurses. And I think all of us know if you've used a tool, you can pretty quickly discern, has a nurse been involved in the design of this at all? Nurses can sniff that out so quickly. There's no deceiving there. So our priority here was this needs to be built with them, not for them. And so, like I said, hundreds of hours rounding. It's not just even interviewing nurses, like that doesn't give you the full picture either. What I have said to my team, and I'll say it again, you can read about the pain of nursing, you can ask nurses about it in a setting like this. But until you are on the floor, smelling the smells, hearing the phones ringing, the alarms going off, watching the interactions, feeling how chaotic this environment really is, you can't grasp it. And so I think that was foundational in how these products were really built from the start. And so that was our starting point. Again, Ambience Nursing Council, very heavily involved. And now every capability that we're building and refining, because this is just the start. There's so much left that we can still do and improve. This continues to be refined through nurse in the loop feedback. Every product that's live, they can actively give us feedback. And a real human being is there responding in, minutes to that feedback, positive, negative, what do they like, what don't they like? And then our team is taking that and using it to refine over time. From start to finish, nurses are involved in this.
How do you handle trust and safety? Like, how does a nurse know that they can trust the information that the AI is surfacing for them?
Ambience has a 3-tier safety architecture. I just mentioned one component of this, but to start, our team and really what my role is at Ambience is to conduct standard evaluations for safety before a product is ever deployed to a real person in production. So standard safety evaluations prior to deployment, and then real-time response validation and quality monitoring. Every single response that is generated in real life in these hospitals, we are monitoring in real time to ensure safety and chart fidelity. And then, like I said, there's also this third layer of continuous nurse in the loop feedback. So if they flag something, even if it's not related to safety, maybe it's this answer was not concise enough and therefore I didn't have time to read it and act on it. They can provide that feedback in the moment. Our team gets it, is able to digest it, and then act on it. In addition, every answer that either Chart Chat provides or Nursing Summary provides, aggregated from the chart, this is going to include full source citations directly from the EHR. So this is going to allow nurses to fully trace every single response back to the underlying, whether it's a note, it's a lab, Flowsheet row. So this really preserves confidence without kind of putting the burden on the nurse to have to do full chart review. We're actually putting it there front and center for them. Lastly, I think something that's really important and we get a lot of questions about, charts have a lot of conflicting information sometimes. And it can be hard to understand, rheumatology said this one thing, this other person said a different thing. So the tools that we have here are very explicit about their limits, and they understand that the nurse is the ultimate decision maker, right? We are the last line of defense. And so if chart chat doesn't have enough information, if nursing summary doesn't have enough information to answer a question confidently, it's going to say so rather than guessing. And in addition, if there are conflicts within the chart, it's going to present those and say, okay, you're the decision maker here. I'm going to give you the context you need to be able to escalate this or make a decision here.
And it's also not going to hallucinate and make up information. So for instance, if you were to ask chart chat, show me the results from the last 3 liver function panels, and there are only 2 listed in the chart, it's not going to make up a third one just because you asked to show you the last 3.
Amber, I'm going to kick this one to you because you were telling us what it actually looks like in the chart a few minutes ago. But how easy is it for a nurse to give feedback? Since we all know, once something doesn't work once, we kind of were like, never mind, I'm not using this again. How did you get over that with getting nurses to give feedback?
It's super easy to use. When it comes to our patient summary, there's different modules where you're getting information. And so even for that psychosocial context area that we all love, inside of that section, there's 2 buttons down at the bottom where you can, give a thumbs up if you feel like this was a good response or you want to give positive feedback, or you can do a thumbs down. And so it's readily accessible, again, right there in the chart in the moment. So if there was something that I felt like, maybe this could have been delivered a little bit better, I can give that feedback right then and there versus having to, add this memory of, I need to let Ambience know of this feedback in the midst of everything else that I have to do to take care of my patient. It's a game changer because, again, we know how busy nurses are and, you're juggling multiple things. We've been seeing a pretty good response from nurses about having it readily accessible right there in the chart versus having to have maybe their email pulled up or, having to remember to do something after the fact.
Something I just want to add to this for nurses listening out there who maybe have had the chance to try different AI tools, maybe have not. I think something that our team has noticed, which has been really enlightening, is that we want to encourage nurses to give more feedback. It's actually taken effort to help nurses to see that someone's actually doing something with this. This team of people that you're meeting on the ground, we're the ones behind the scenes actually reviewing this, real people. And you're going to see the product change over time when you do give feedback. So I think maybe nurses are kind of used to being ignored or kind of abandoned in this wave of new technology. And so just demonstrating to them over time, again, with trust and warmth, that people are actually paying attention and care about what you think about this. And you're going to see the future change based on what you say is helpful and what you say is not.
Okay, so let's chat about the trial at Cleveland Clinic. I'm really curious if you learned anything early on that really changed what you were doing and also how it's going now.
Cleveland Clinic, amazing institution. They're the first health system that has been piloting chart chat and nursing summary, and broader availability is kind of expanding throughout this year. What did we learn from them? First of all, these nurses are incredible. It's been such a privilege to work with them and learn from them. We first went live with chart chat. And so I think the biggest learning that came out of that was here's an interface where they can ask anything they want about the patient from a clinical perspective. What we saw was this pattern emerging. There were roughly 5 questions that nurses were all asking, day shift, night shift, didn't matter how many years of experience the nurse had. They were all kind of asking similar clusters of questions. And that's ultimately what inspired nursing summary, because we realized, okay, nurses are trying to build a mental model of who their patient is before assuming care. They're asking chart chat, which is great. But what if we could, take those questions, anticipate that they're going to ask them at different points during the shift, and then just pre-generate them so that they can hit the ground running. And so I think what's been really cool is obviously asking them questions about what they want and helping to design that, but also just observing their usage and the ideas that are generated just by watching how they organically interact with the product has opened up so many new insights. And if I could just give any praise to these nurses, it's they're so creative. I think nurses are so much more creative than we give ourselves credit for. So many ideas to enhance these products and even like, pie in the sky, what's going to happen in the future have come from people that are on shift. They have 30 seconds of their time, to give us. And they're like, oh, what about this? What if you did this? And it's just incredible how generative they are and the fantastic ideas they have.
What's next for nursing at Ambience? Is there anything that you're really excited about?
Emma, I am so excited. Again, as a peds nurse, there's so many different specialties. There are different levels of acuity that nurses are in. And so for me, I'm just really excited to continue expanding new care settings, new specialty areas. And as we continue to build trust with nurses, hearing from them about what's next. Can they reimagine what nursing documentation even looks like in the future? So there's a lot left that we can do.
And for me, I'm excited about really expanding our audience. We have a couple of trade shows that we're going to be attending towards the end of Q3 and Q4. So I'll be attending those and, being able to do live demos in front of potential customers and those C-suite level executives that are really the decision makers is super exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
It sounds like in the realest way, you're going to let the nurses on the ground drive what's next.
Exactly.
100%.
Wrapping up with a few questions here. This one comes up a lot for nurses who are looking at moving into the health tech space and those who have recently gotten into it. But how do you think about your responsibility to patients now, and has it changed?
I still feel heavily responsible for patients, just in a different way. I may not be caring for patients one-on-one anymore at the bedside, but I think that my work is still very prevalent in helping when it comes to patient care. I feel like I'm more on the seat where I'm advocating for nurses, which is great. But if I can help, give a clinician back more time, reduce burnout, or make their day even a little bit easier, really in return, that ultimately benefits every patient that they care for. So like I said, still take that responsibility very heavily. It just looks a little bit differently now.
I totally agree with Amber. There's very deep and heavy responsibility. I think this shows up in safety, which we already talked about, trust with nurses who are using this. What is the downstream impact of what we're building? So as I'm sitting behind my computer every day, working with my team, what I'm imagining is my friends and their patients. Like, can I picture them in the room and ask, how is this going to affect their day? How is it going to affect the patients that they are serving? Is this making more space for human connection? Is it making more space for my friends to feel the joy of patient care again? Like the parts that, drew all of us into this in the first place.
Did either of you feel a little bit of, I kind of call it caregiver regret initially when you made the switch? Like, I'm supposed to be at the bedside and that's not what I'm doing anymore?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes. That is such an important question. And I think something that helped me, I'm curious about you, Amber. I'm trying to remember the name of this book that I read, How to Design Your Work Life, just came to me. And it kind of mapped out in a visual, I'm a visual learner, and it mapped out like different contexts of impact making and how some people, are in a season of life where they're really one-on-one and they find a lot of joy in that. And then other people want to have a really broad, sweeping impact. And I think the reality is that some of us are in a time where we're really enjoying the up close and personal. Changing one person's day is deeply meaningful to us. And some of us have experienced burnout in that setting and are ready to move on to something new. And what I would just encourage nurses who are listening, the door is never closed. Like, even when I took a step away the first time to work at a health tech startup, had an amazing experience, I did travel nursing after that. And right now I'm in Ambience and I'm loving my life, and this is a dream come true for me. And I know that door is never really closed. It doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. I like the reframe of impact making and the different contexts that you can do that in. As long as you're doing it with all of your heart, I think, whether it's up close and personal or it's broad, like the choice is up to you. And it doesn't have to be a forever decision.
I love that. And I think really too, it just speaks to all of the opportunities that you have as a nurse. I know for me specifically, starting off and even in nursing school, what I'm doing now, if I would have known about this, almost 10 years ago, it would have seemed so far-fetched, because I feel like the trajectory when it comes to your nursing career that's kind of, painted for you is, okay, yeah, you get your bedside experience, you can go back to get, a MSN and maybe education, or become a nurse practitioner, CRNA, and things like that. It's almost like, well, what happens if I am experiencing that burnout and I want to make a change? What does that really look like? And I feel like, again, we really didn't have those answers or a clear example for me, what that would look like. And I also really didn't expect to experience burnout. If you would have asked me, I probably would have been like, retiring as a nurse manager or a nursing director or something, or at a hospital in labor and delivery or women's health. I really think that it just speaks to all of the opportunities that we have as nurses. And as Sam said, as long as you are doing it with all of your heart and you are still remembering your why of why you even wanted to become a nurse or even join healthcare, I feel like that doesn't get lost no matter what title you're holding in this space.
Beautifully said, Amber.
If a nurse watching this is curious about doing a path like yours, going from bedside to health tech, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Say, take advantage of where you are. And when I say that, I mean, are there any upcoming projects that are getting ready to take place, at your hospital on your unit? Are there opportunities for you to become a super user? I'll never forget, I was voluntold to be a super user. I was the youngest one on my unit at that time. And my supervisor, I just remember her saying, you'll thank me for this later. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So now looking back, I'm like, wow, that really was helpful, because it gives you another insight into that technology space and how it can change or benefit healthcare. So I would say, if that opportunity comes about, definitely volunteer to take it. And maybe even see if you can shadow, any of the IT folks that are at your hospital. If there's a nursing informaticist that's there that you can shadow or speak to, just really taking advantage of where you currently are. I feel like some nurses, when they think about it, or I oftentimes get asked like, oh, did you go back to school for something else? Or did you, have to get some certifications to get the job that you have now? That's not always the case. Our nursing experience really can take us far in this industry. But I would say give that a start versus you trying to do something big or having to spend a lot of money to get this additional insight. Just start where you are and then kind of go from there.
Totally agree with Amber. I'm an overthinker. You do not have to have the entire path mapped out. Start by following what you are naturally curious about. Talk to people doing that work. I think it was Tim Ferriss who popularized the quote, "What would it look like if it were easy?" I love that. Don't overcomplicate it. Take the smallest possible action as fast as you can. Thinking, ruminating about like what could be next. You can make a whole elaborate plan in your head. Just take the action. Call the person that you are inspired by on LinkedIn, reach out to them, meet up with people, just keep taking action.
Well, can I ask one more random question?
Absolutely.
Because I just
don't want this to end.
We're having so much fun.
It's such a silly question, but I take inspiration, and you're going to laugh now when I ask the question. What is your work from home snack?
I really like to treat myself and make myself a mini charcuterie board sometimes. That's my savory, a little midday snack. But sometimes you just, I don't know, you got to pull out the tub of ice cream and just have a spoonful just to power through the rest of the day.
Yeah. I'm not really a candy girl, but Reese's just came out with, it's like their white chocolate, but it's like a area of like Oreo that's kind of like infused into the little bite-sized pieces. That's been my jam.
Send those to me.
Yeah, I sure will. That's been my jam. But if I'm trying to be a little healthy, I will make me like a little snack plate. I'm on the fish wife wave of all of the...
so good.
Oh, yeah.
That with some crackers, the pickled onions, maybe some fruit. Yeah, if I'm feeling fancy, that's what I'll do.
Emma, what about you? What's your, I'm curious, what's your work from home?
I'm a raccoon. So if it's in my house, I'm a snack on it.
Yeah.
I will say right now I'm on the Boom Chicka Pop kettle corn kick, but Costco hasn't had it for a few weeks and it's been a crisis.
Oh my gosh, get this girl some popcorn.
And pepperoncinis out of the fridge. It's standing in front of the glow of the refrigerator snacking.
Yes. Yes.
If it's one of those days.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me. I'm so happy we got to get to know each other a little bit better.
I can't believe this happened. This is amazing.
I know.
This was so fun. Thank you so much,
fun.
Emma.
Yeah.
And for the nurses watching and listening, you can learn more about Ambience Healthcare and the Ambience Nursing Suite by visiting their website, ambiencehealthcare.com.